PMQs, unpacked on Times Radio. Unpacking the politics and cutting through the crossfire.
Order, order. I call Matt Chorley and Patrick Maguire.
Patrick Maguire, it's been a while.
It's been a while, and this is the last time I'll ever do it, sadly. So,
well, it's nice to have you here.
Oh, it's great to be back for the first instalment of this new era. I was just thinking to myself, I better text my top contacts in the Labour Party to find out what Keir Starmer's going to ask today.
Yeah.
But he doesn't ask the questions no more.
So have you texted your top contacts in the Tory party?
Tumbleweed.
Huge help you are, Patrick.
I think most of them have lost their seats, actually.
Yeah, that's true.
No, genuinely, the MPs I spoke to most lost their seats, so it'd be a bit rude to text them and ask what they think Rishi should go on at PMQs.
Yeah, like I can't I'll call you back. I'm just in the job centre. Well, hopefully
not with their pensions, they're not.
Nadia Whittome is the Labour MP who had been critical of Keir Starmer over the two-child.
But she didn't rebel last night. One of the telegenic left-wingers from the 29 intake is very millennial. She's 27, I think. Nadia Whittome, Nottingham East left-winger. But she didn't rebel last night, unlike Zora Sultana, who is another member of that 2019 intake, who is unrepentant this morning and very keen to, say she's done nothing wrong in rebelling. Be interesting to hear what Nadia Whittome has asked the Prime Minister.
And it's going to be interesting just how Keir Starmer deal. I mean, presumably he'll be cheered to the rafters when we get to it in a moment. But this decision. What do you make of the decision to kick out or to suspend the whip for 7 MPs?
It's a really interesting question, Matt. I think a lot of the analysis of this focuses on, something might happen in a year's time or 2 years' time. That's the danger of political journalism. Sometimes you turn into a futurologist. But I think right now, the threat clearly worked in that it suppressed the rebellion to 7 people. And I think there's a bigger question for the left of the Labour Party here is that what do they do strategically? They've got 6 months, those rebels, to follow the whip or not follow the whip and come up with a plan to either sustain the left in the Labour Party or out of the Labour Party. But the striking thing for me was that those threats are issued and they worked. Also, the thing that is really interesting to me is John McDonnell has always been the sort of Labour left's ambassador to pragmatism. And that he went over the top last night does make me question, what is John McDonnell playing at? Because he has always been the sort of person who would probably be urging the left to step back from the ledge rather than plunging over it. So, maybe he thought he was calling the leadership's bluff, and they didn't bluff.
It's amazing. Like, he was on the show last week telling me he thought that if they got a vote on this issue, whether in the budget or the King's Speech, there would be a majority in favour of it. And
I think John McDonnell is right that in their hearts they are all in favour of it, or most of them are in favour of it. But the number 10 saw this as a question of discipline, and the whips clearly turned the thumbscrews in a very effective way. So look, it worked in suppressing the rebellion, and I think that's the long and short of it today.
And actually making sure that a whole new load of the new MPs didn't rebel on the basis, I imagine, their inboxes have been flooded in the pressure and the tweets and all of that, and just saying, look, you have to face that down, you have to toe the line as an early marker.
Well, even Andy Burnham was interviewed last night on a rival station, and he said, look, I'm on record as saying the 2-child cap is vile and disgusting, but 3 weeks in, I think, is a little bit soon for this sort of carry on. And I think that's actually a broad consensus view across the soft left and even into the slightly harder left of the Labour Party.
Which is why there's only 7 of them in the end. Right, here we go then. It's Keir Starmer answering the questions. And for the very first time, it's Rishi Sunak asking them. Question number 1 in the House of Commons.
Welcome to the Leader of the Opposition, Rishi Sunak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I join with the Prime Minister in expressing my shock at the attack on a British soldier? Our thoughts are with him and his family as we wish him a speedy recovery. And I also join with the Prime Minister in his warm words about our Olympic athletes. I've no doubt that after years of training, focus and dedication, they'll bring back many gold medals. Although, to be honest, I'm probably not the first person they want to hear advice from on how to win. But I'm glad in our exchanges. I'm glad, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm glad in our exchanges so far we have maintained a cross-party consensus on important matters of foreign policy. And in that spirit today, I wanted to focus our exchange on Ukraine and national security. The UK has consistently been the first country to provide new capabilities to Ukraine, such as the long-range weapons that have been used so effectively in the Black Sea. Now, those decisions aren't easy, and I was grateful to the Prime Minister for his support as I made those decisions in government. And in opposition, I offer that same support to him. So can I ask that he continues to be responsive to Ukraine's new requests so that they don't just stand still, but can decisively win out against Russian aggression?
Can I thank the Leader of the Opposition for not only raising the question of Ukraine, but doing it in a way which can maintain the unity across this House, which has been so important to the Ukrainian people. And I can assure him that we are, of course, talking to Ukraine about how they deal with the Russian aggression that they are facing, have been facing for many, many months. And I will continue to try to do that in the way that he did, which is to reach out across the House to share such information as we can to maintain the unity that is so important.
Going for foreign policy keeps it nice and safe. Might be an outbreak of cosy consensus over 6 questions.
I don't know. I think his mention of the long-range missiles there, that was on Keir Starmer's sort of foreign tour at Blenheim Palace a little bit after his return from NATO. There was this sort of ongoing question of what is the extent to which the government is willing to let Ukraine use those British Storm Shadow missiles to hit targets in Russia. Keir Starmer appeared to say, yeah, go for it. Then the number 10 line was, there's been no change in position. John Healey, the Defence Secretary, came on this station and others to say, you can use them to hit targets in Russia, but don't expect us to help you aim them or set that up for you. So I wonder if Rishi Sunak's going to go there. And also, there's the issue of when exactly is Labour going to hit 2.5% of GDP on defence spending? That is another question that I expect Rishi Sunak may courteously and delicately maybe build up to towards the end of these exchanges.
Well, let's go back to the House of Commons. We've got Mims Davis to Rishi Sunak's right, Oliver Dowden sitting to his left. Oliver Dowden looks really unimpressed about the whole thing. He needs to remember that he is still on camera, albeit on the opposition front bench. Let's go back to the House of Commons now. This is question 2 from Rishi Sunak.
I thank him for that response. Now, I also found that one of the UK's key roles as Ukraine's closest ally is to encourage other countries to follow our lead in providing new military capabilities. And in that vein, when he saw Chancellor Scholz recently, I'm sure he thanked him for the considerable air defence that the Germans are providing the Ukrainians. But did he also raise with him the issue of the Germans perhaps providing long-range missiles, just as the UK, America and France have now done?
I had the opportunity in Washington at the NATO Council to talk to our German counterparts. There was a strong theme there on Ukraine, discussed with all of our allies, and part of my message was to urge all of our allies to provide further support where they can to the Ukrainian people, and that was well received, and there was unity coming out of the NATO Council. That's what we must all do.
Again, you were talking, Patrick, there about the question of these missiles. There's the broad sort of rhetoric around we stand shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine, but then it comes down to, well, this is what Ukraine wants. Are you going to let them use these missiles to fire into Russia?
Yeah, indeed. And then Rishi Sunak asking Keir Starmer to sock it to the Germans as well, which is I wasn't expecting him to say that, but it's interesting. He seems to almost be doing an audit on Keir Starmer's foreign travels, which is not. Doesn't really make for thrilling listening, but it's important stuff. And if Rishi Sunak is going to do anything over the next 3 months, it's probably not going to be partisan knockabout stuff. It'll probably be this worthy, slightly plodding, and always impeccably polite 6 questions.
Oh, it's riveting, Patrick, so stay tuned.
Yes, sorry, it's really crash, bang, wallop.
There were still 4... This is really the week where we could have done with Zippy coming in, wouldn't it? Let's go back to the House of Commons then. This is question number 3.
I'm glad to hear the Prime Minister raise the NATO summit as well, because I very much welcome the message that came out loud and clear from that summit, and indeed the Prime Minister's words from the dispatch box on Monday about Ukraine's irreversible path to NATO membership. And so does he agree with me that fatuous Russian claims on Ukrainian territory must not act as a block to Ukraine joining the NATO defensive alliance?
I wholeheartedly agree, and it is for NATO allies to decide who is a member of NATO, formed 75 years ago, a proud and probably most successful alliance that's ever been formed, and that's why it was really important at the summit that we were able to say there is now this irreversible path to membership. That's a step forward from a year ago, and President Zelensky was very pleased that we'd been able to make that successful transition.
We were discussing a bit earlier on as to whether or not Keir Starmer would have a folder. David Cameron and Tony Blair, for their PMQs debuts, didn't. They sort of, there was a lot of sort of casually leaning on the space.
Has he got his leather filofax with him?
Who?
Keir Starmer.
He has, yeah. He's got his big folder.
Yeah, but everywhere he goes now, he takes leather filofax.
It's not actually a filofax.
No. Well, it's probably not a filofax, but you sound like when the subs send around those emails saying don't say Portakabin because that's a protected brand name. And apologies to the Portakabin company, but he carries around this leather satchel.
Is it
thing.
one of those like zip up things?
Yeah, like a little document holder. And I was at his count on election night, and he had this thing with him.
What's in it?
Well, it looked like he was going to get it out and say, "I'd like to talk to you about your double glazing." Like the sort of like person who goes to a sort of 90-year-old's house and says, "Oh, that doors are going to need to go, and you're going to have 5 more for 50 grand."
Have you, one of those sort of, have you thought about a chair that will catapult you out?
So we can get a little door in your bath, and you can walk in.
But then presumably it's because someone had told him don't walk anywhere with papers. The number of people who get caught going in and out of number 10 with their papers showing.
So it's like a little dandy little leather folder. You can see the folder behind him, though. That's Chris Ward, his parliamentary private secretary, with a big folder.
Keir Starmer's got a big folder on the dispatch box.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Big folder is important, though. Liz Truss. This is what Asa Bennett told me. He was his Liz Truss's speechwriter. Liz Truss was very concerned that when she went into Downing Street for the first time, she thought that Boris Johnson had a very flimsy folder, because he had to sort of like almost like one of those, like Polly Pocket. That's another brand name. Other folders are available, and she thought it was a bit unsubstantial, and so she wanted a big folder that made a good thwack on the lectern outside number 10.
Interesting.
So yes, it's important, these things. These stationery. I mean, you say interesting, Patrick.
Well, I'll find out about the leather folder for Friday.
Yeah, we'll look into that. Right, okay, let's go back to the House of Commons now. This is question number 4 from Rishi Sunak.
Thanks to the complex legal and diplomatic work that the UK has led over the past several months, together with our allies Canada and America, the Prime Minister will, I hope, now find that there is a sound and established legal basis to go further on sanctions and seize Russian assets and use them to fund Ukrainian reconstruction. Now, that work has taken time, but I hope he is able to take a look at it, and can he confirm for the House that this work is something that he will take forward, because if he does, I can assure him that the opposition will support him in doing so.
Again, I'm grateful for this opportunity to say how united we were on the question of sanctions across this House. The use now made of what has been seized and frozen is an important issue on which I think we can move forward. And I know the Chancellor is already beginning to have some discussions about how we can take more effective measures. Again, I will seek to reach out across the House as we do this important work together.
Now, that's interesting. The reference to the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, who was sitting to Keir Starmer's left, and she sort of nodded along in agreement. Because, it's one thing saying we stand shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine, but that's going to cost money. And a lot of money, because defence stuff doesn't come cheap. And one of the big, although they're all, can I wholeheartedly agree with you, wholeheartedly agreeing with me, one of the big rows they had during the election campaign was over defence spending and when Britain was going to meet its target of spending 2.5% of GDP on defence.
Yes, exactly. And it's actually a timely question today because of that rebellion from Keir Starmer's left-wing MPs, although they're not Keir Starmer's MPs anymore. You'll remember, Matt, not because you're alive, but because you know your history, when Britain went into Korea in the early 1950s and had to spend billions and billions of pounds. Hugh Gaitskell, the Chancellor, decided to abolish free spectacles and dentures on the NHS and start bringing prescription charges. And that sparked a massive rebellion. Nye Bevan and Harold Wilson resigned from the government. And so you see there, it's politically difficult for the Labour Party, not least because already the difficult decisions they're taking on fiscal decisions will become even more difficult if there's, a few billion extra going on defence that can't go on welfare or the NHS or that sort of thing. The policy trade-offs will become even more painful.
And the extent to which Labour MPs sitting quietly nodding, oh, it's very good, yeah, very good, wholeheartedly agree. Ultimately, if there's money that's sloshing around, they will probably have local priorities which they would rather see the money spent on than the situation in Ukraine. And that is where tough choices have to be made.
Well, it's like the old lyric from Going Underground by The Jam, isn't it? You'll see kidney machines replaced by rockets and guns.
There we are. Thanks so much.
There's actually a great academic history of the defence economy under the Labour governments in the 1970s called Kidney Machines, Rockets and Guns.
Very good.
I've not read it.
Well, it must be really bad if even you've not read it.
It's actually really expensive. It's like 80 quid. So if anyone out there wants to donate one, if you're listening, Mum,
0332353 if you want to get in touch. What are we up to now? I've sort of lost track. It's been so good. Only question 5, blimey. Let's go back to the House of Commons. This is Rishi Sunak's question 5.
I very much welcome the Prime Minister's response, but I also welcome both his and the Defence Secretary's recent emphasis on the importance of the Tempest fighter jet programme. It's a crucial sovereign capability, as he mentioned, and important for our alliances with Italy and Japan. Furthermore, however, other countries also wish to participate. And in government, we had begun initial productive discussions with our friend and ally Saudi Arabia about their desire to potentially join the programme. So could the Prime Minister confirm that he will continue those initial positive conversations with Saudi Arabia? And again, I can assure him that he will have our support in doing so.
Well, let me make this absolutely clear. This is a really important programme. Significant progress has already been made, and we want to build on that progress. And I've had some initial discussions, not least in Farnborough, where I was just a few days ago.
That's almost word for word what he said in Farnborough, actually. He said it is an important programme. It's an important programme on which we are making significant progress. There's a review going on, but it's important for me to put on record just how important a programme this is. So this is the £12 billion Tempest programme, where it was a story a couple of days ago when he was at the Farnborough Air Show. Keir Starmer refused to confirm that it will definitely go ahead, that Britain will continue to participate in it. So it's the UK, Italy, Japanese plans to build this 6th generation fighter jet.
Yeah, and that was the big announcement when the Japanese Prime Minister came to visit, I think it was in late 2022, and that was the signing of a new big defence deal between Britain and Japan, part of the Indo-Pacific tilt under Boris Johnson and Liz Truss's government. I mean, it's interesting. Like, everything Keir Starmer seems to be saying on defence seems to be a holding line. You know, it's very important. And thank you for raising it, because I agree with you that it's very important, and it's good that we all agree. You sense that he won't be saying anything different until the Defence Review he commissioned, which is led by John Healey and other experts, including George Robertson, the former NATO Secretary-General and Cabinet Minister, and Fiona Hill, not from Theresa May's number 10, but the Geordie who used to work for Donald Trump. She's an academic. She's not just a random Geordie, obviously. Until they say something about what the army should look like, you know, I think we're going to be hearing a lot more from this from Keir Starmer on defence.
And again, it goes back to the question of money and the availability of money, because defence projects, once you commit to them, they have a habit of massively running out of control. And the whole idea of doing it between Britain, Japan and Italy was to try and bring costs down.
Yeah, as a country, we do defence procurement terribly, as Dominic Cummings could tell you.
Well, he doesn't take my calls anymore. Right, let's go back to the House of Commons then. This is the final question, number 6, from Rishi Sunak.
Finally, Mr. Speaker, can I just say that in the dangerous and uncertain world that we now sadly live in, I know firsthand how important it is that our Prime Minister can use his prerogative power to quickly respond militarily to protect British national security, sometimes without giving this House prior notice. Now, these are perhaps the most difficult decisions that a Prime Minister can take, and I welcomed his support when I made them. And I want to take this opportunity to assure him of the opposition's support if he deems it necessary to take similar action in the future. So does he agree with me that whilst the use of the prerogative power is sometimes politically controversial, it is essential to ensure the safety and security of the British people?
I agree it's essential, and our security is the first duty of government. I was grateful to the Leader of the Opposition for reaching out when action had to be taken to me personally to ensure that I was briefed on the sensitive issues that lay behind the decisions that he had to take. And as I mentioned to him last week, I will endeavour to ensure that we proceed in the same way so that he has access to all the information that he needs to come to a determination, which I hope will be, to be able to support the position that this government takes. Thank you.
That's probably him looking back to January this year when he ordered the airstrikes in Yemen against the Houthi rebels.
Yes.
Without consulting Parliament first.
Yeah, indeed. And I think Labour did roam behind at that point.
Yeah, some of the other parties, Lib Dems, SNP and Plaid, criticised him for not seeking parliamentary approval. But I suspect there's probably quite a lot of the Labour. There's some of the ones who are currently sitting as suspended independent MPs.
Well, don't forget that Keir Starmer, in his 2020 10 pledges to the Labour membership when he was running for Labour leader, did promise to introduce a Prevention of Military Action Act. It wasn't quite called that, but yeah, Prevention of Military Intervention Act, which would have a parliamentary lock on any overseas military action. No more illegal wars, he said during that campaign, although he didn't say it. He would correctly say the correct term is unlawful, and got very annoyed when they put illegal wars out under his name. But yes.
I think it is what it said, wasn't it? It was promote peace and human rights. No more illegal wars.
Yeah, no, I know, but he didn't like that wording because
okay.
the correct legal term is unlawful.
Well, he signed it. He's got his signature at the bottom.
There you go.
No more illegal wars. Introduce a Prevention of Military Intervention Act to put human rights at the heart of foreign policy. Review all UK arms sales and make us a force for international peace and justice.
So yeah, I think we can infer from that exchange the Prevention of Military Intervention Act ain't happening anytime soon.
Along with most of the other things on those 10
Yeah,
pledges.
indeed, yeah.
So how would you score that then, Patrick?
I think it defies scoring, and that's the sort of government Keir Starmer is going to lead. It's not for the benefit of scribblers like us, chuntering away in our ivory tower
In a sedentary position.